I'm going to show you how to bead a cap here. I've got just a regular old Velcro back, but what I did first was I got a ruler and I measured all the way across. I kind of started here. I marked this as my standard. This is a really rounded corner, so it's hard to get a straight line to get the middle, but I just worked my way up with the ruler. I've got a right angle ruler, and I just basically marked it all the way up. So depending on which kind of design you want to do, this is the center point, so everything you do here will just be mirrored on this side, unless you're going to just do the same design all the way across. Typically, I like to start over here and then do a design, stop here, and mirror the rest here. It's really up to you. You have the option to start here if you want, because if you start here, you can start with a fresh, clean design and work your way all the way to the end, and then you won't have to worry about the ending part here. Each way you start, it'll be mirrored if you want it to be mirrored. However, it's always best to start your designs in the middle, because then you'll have a starting point, a clean starting point with the way you're going to go in the center. Sometimes if you start on the end and then work your way into the center, you have to be mindful of your design, because your design has to match up. Or sometimes if you're doing a repeat design with maybe triangles, and your triangle ends here, but then you have like a half triangle over here, your triangle won't be centered right here in the center. You want your point of your triangle to be right in the center. So that's why it's mindful to start right where you're marked to get a perfect triangle, if that's what you're looking for. Okay. So there's also two options you can do here. Some people like to go straight through, which is they go underneath to the top, and you come around and then go through the top. You'll have the bead wrapped around the whole brim. Some people will do that, or some people will just bead through the top portion and just have the beads lay on top. I also want to explain that these holes here, sometimes some people will use the holes to push their needle through because this brim is so thick. I don't use the holes. You can test that out if you like, but in this tutorial we will not be using the holes. So the way I start out is you push your needle up underneath to hide your knotted thread down here. So we'll find the center. Oh, also, you can measure how thick you want your beaded brim to be. You can start and use these stitches as a guide and just make your brim, your beaded brim, that thick, or you can go a little bit smaller and take it in half of that right here. Depending on how many beads you want to loop around and stitch around the brim is going to be your preference as well. I typically go right in front of the stitch. I don't go all the way to the stitch, but I'll go right in front of it, because it does take a lot of beads. Since you're beading, your beads are going to wrap all the way around to the bottom. I can't remember how many beads it takes, but a beaded graduation hat, I normally use about 19 beads. And you always want to use odd numbered beads, because if you're doing geometrical designs, you want the single bead in the center and not two for a point. So that's why we always want to use odd beads. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and push this through the bottom. There you go. Okay, so there's my needle. You see where it's coming out? I'm not right on this stitch, but I'm right in front of it. So you're gonna pull that through so your knotted thread is underneath. So I'm just gonna pull that through. And this is really hard to go through. Like I said, the brim is very, very thick. Okay, so now the thread's on top. Now you want to go back down, because, and this is my preference, you want to go back down really close, really close to where you came up. You see that? My needle's right there and my thread. Okay, and this is what the bottom's gonna look like. Okay, pull that through. And the reason why I went back down is because I want my thread to come out underneath the hat so I can wrap it around to the top. When I come to the top, I want to be able to place my needle in a straight line all the way through. The top is what you care about.
Come on down, ladies and
Okay.
gentlemen. Feel the energy. Feel the
See
spirit
that?
of Gathering of Nations 2010. Booga!
All right, that's your first stitch there. And that's what it looks like on the bottom. See where my thread's at? You're gonna thread this again and then bring it back to the top. So I'll do another line of the topaz so y'all see. And I'm pulling my beads right off the hank here. Okay, so I've got my other row of beads started, strung, bring it over. Okay, and you want to match it up with this row like I was talking about earlier, as close as possible to be a straight line all the way across. So if you have too many beads, so push your beads all the way back, right, to see how it matches up. I've got too many beads, although I've got the same number of beads on here. Each bead is shaped differently. Don't be afraid to take one off or two if you have to. So the first row I started with 21. This row I'm gonna do 20. And it doesn't matter at this point because these are solid rows of one color. So it's not going to affect our design. Now, when you get into your design a little bit more, if you have triangles you're working with, you'll have to be a little mindful of which bead you take off, or you might have to reposition your thread. So that means taking one out, one of the rows out that you've already stitched to get a straighter line. So then you're going to insert your needle right at the tip of that second row at an angle, like I said before. Be mindful of where your needle comes out in the back. You want it to come out right next to the row back there. And mine is not, so you'll just have to play with that a little bit. Make sure you get it out correctly. And it's a little bit harder on brims, the hat, because it's curved. So you have to be mindful about where your needle's placed because the curve does adjust that a little bit. Okay, so now I repositioned my needle and looks like we're good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and pull that through. And if you're having trouble pushing your needle through, I have acrylic nails, so these are actually helping me get the needle through. You can use pliers or a buckskin needle, and you can just use random pieces of buckskin. Like I have this piece of buckskin here that sometimes I use just to push my needle through, and I'll just push it through like that so this won't hurt my fingers, because your fingers will tear up really easy. So once I push that through, and sometimes my fingers get too greasy or clammy from holding everything so tight, I'll take my pliers and I'll just do that, and I'll just pull it right through. It makes life easier, especially when you're working with such difficult items with tough surfaces. Okay, so now I have my second row on, and you're just going to repeat this process all the way through. So with my centerpiece, I'm going to do two topaz. I'll probably do two maybe whites, two reds and maroons, and then I'll start a design going this way. And you're just gonna follow all the way along. If you run out of thread, all you're gonna do is turn it to the back. You're gonna cut your needle off right here or wherever it's suitable for you. Pull the strings apart and you'll just double knot like that and tie it off. And then you'll restring your needle and you're gonna push it through on the back side. Let me get this in focus. You're gonna push it through on the back side, right next to the row you left off of, right on the side. And then you'll push it through coming up. You'll push it through coming up, and don't forget to go back down through your brim because you want your string to come out on the bottom so you can wrap around to the top. So once you push it through and you pull through, go straight back down, pull through, string your beads on, and continue the process in wrapping it around. you have any questions, let me know.